Welcome to another edition of Hotline Live. Tonight, Fish Fiorucci. And now, the man who sold you those bad tamales, Pablo de la Rosa.
Welcome to Hotline Live for Friday, May 29th, 2020. Hotline Live broadcasting from the Rio Grande Valley. Shout out to, looks like we have somebody from Edinburgh in the room tonight. Shout out to everybody broadcasting from the Mid-Valley, actually. East to South Padre Island and west to Rio Grande City. All the way north to Raymondville, Texas. Shout out to our friends in the south as well. Reynosa, Matamoros, Monterrey, Nuevo León. The whole region. We've got supermodel and Brownsville Fashion Week organizer, founder, Fish Fiorucci on the show a little bit later tonight. And we're going to have we have open lines now, but we're going to have open lines on everything going on in Minneapolis, of course, after the murder of George Floyd. A lot of stuff going on this week. And I also actually wanted to cover a little bit about a story that came on Sunday. So much has happened this week that I think it was something that was maybe easy to overlook for a lot of people, but seemingly I think it's important. And it has to do with the disbursement of federal funds by Hidalgo County. It looks like maybe they might have done a better job of that, and we had an article coming out of the Monitor on Sunday covering a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about that before we get into George Floyd, just to bring it to everybody's attention, because I think it was one of the things actually that should have been a major news headline this week, and it was, but for a very brief moment before everything erupted. And I'm also going to be talking in a little bit to and he wasn't in the promos. I didn't mention this in the promos, and I didn't put this on social media, but I'm going to be talking to Zach Borgia, who is a UTRGV political science, Latinx social activist. He is one of the, I think, two people who are the organizers of the Solidarity protest happening at 2 p.m. tomorrow on the college campus. The RGV Solidarity protest and call for justice for George Floyd is what the event is called on Facebook, happening tomorrow at 2 p.m. He's going to be calling in at about 8:30. We're going to have Fish Fiorucci at the top of the second hour, about 9 p.m. So we're going to be talking about those topics. I'm really excited actually to talk to Fiorucci a little bit later. And I'm interested also in hearing if maybe some people, apart from Zach, would call in and talk a little bit about George Floyd and what they're seeing out there in terms of social media. That's a really quickly developing story, so I'll be checking live updates on that right before I start to talk about it, because even today, the officer responsible for George Floyd's murder, Derek Chauvin, was arrested, and he was charged, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but that just happened, I believe, today, just a few hours ago. So we'll be talking about that. Zach will be calling in, tell us about the Solidarity protest happening tomorrow at 2 p.m., and we'll have Fish a little bit later. I wanted to play you guys, before we got into the open line topics, I don't know if you have been paying attention, if you've been following Fish Fiorucci for the past couple of days. He's been putting on just amazing fashion workshops, runway shows, fashion runway shows, working with some of the most talented people in the Rio Grande Valley fashion scene. And so he's been planning this for a while now, and promoting it for a while now. This was his week to have it. I think it was unfortunate that it happened at the same time as this tragedy, this murder in Minneapolis. But nonetheless, all of these creative people went out and gave it their best. Very talented people. So I just wanted to play you a little piece of the trailer that you may have already seen on social media. This was a trailer that they put out for the event, Brownsville Fashion Week. 7 days of fashion workshops, runway shows, all remote, all live streamed for the first time. This is a yearly event, but it was all online this year. So, pretty interesting stuff. That was a teaser trailer for the event if you were following that on social media. But we'll talk to Fish a little bit later tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit. Maybe you guys weren't listening to. Okay. Looks like we have audio now. So, okay, great. Thanks for those comments. So we're talking about CARES Act, Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. It looks like we're getting a phone call here. Hi, you are on, or maybe not getting.
We can't hear you.
Okay. Are you on the phone now?
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Okay.
Is your stream back?
Let's see. So my stream is up. I think I have my microphone on now. And
okay, it was off for like a good long while there.
Yeah, I didn't have it on. I think it's on now. Are you able to hear it now?
Oh, there you are. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God! Thanks very much, Charlie.
Oh, you got it. Have a good show. Bye.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so there it is. That shows my. So getting this show together, the software for this is a little bit complicated, and sometimes I run really short on time to get everything into the show that I really want to. So I'm not going to go back and redo the whole thing, but we'll just pick up because this is the first topic anyway, and the phone line is working, so that's good, and my microphone is working now, so that's even better. And so we're talking about this CARES Act, which is federal funds coming down from the state to Hidalgo County. I mentioned also that a Monitor article came out on Sunday by Naxieli Lopez Puente and Berenice Garcia, two excellent journalists over at the Monitor, and they're on Twitter if you want to check them out. Excellent work. But basically, the CARES fund was supposed to come down and be distributed to the county per capita. So it was, the state said something like, give people $175, something like that per person. But Hidalgo County went out of its way, and nobody else is doing this, by the way. Judge Cortez came up with this on his own. It's not part of the act. The cities aren't doing this. He said, we're going to give more per capita to the citizens of McAllen and these larger cities, and we're going to give less per capita to everybody else. Right? And he said it's a formula. It's the word that he used. So, just to be clear, since the award is per capita, it's already weighed in terms of community size, right? So if per capita is, let's say, for example, the per capita is $5, a community with 1,000 people will get $5,000, and a community with 100 people will get $500. Much smaller award. So it's already working in that way. But Judge Cortez says, let's apply a formula where if you live in a big place, you get $10 per capita. And if you live in a small place, you only get $1 or $2 per capita, right? So the place with a lot of people gets much more. The place with only a small amount of people gets much less. So his first argument, I guess, that was mentioned in this article about there being more necessity because of the larger group size doesn't make any sense. That's already the way it works. It wasn't necessary to reduce funds for these smaller communities even further, so drastically as well. He wasn't clear about that. Now, the governor and the two reps on the finance committee for Texas went out of their way to write a letter, publish, I think it was a press release, and they went on. It was a whole thing just to say, please distribute this money equally per capita. Doesn't matter if people are in a rural area, in a city, please distribute this just like we're saying per capita, right? They really went out of their way to do this. So again, second reason that Judge Cortez gave was if we don't distribute this right, they may ask for it back. We're just following orders. We're just doing what we're told. You got to do it this way. But again, the governor and the finance committee reps were very clear about that. So it's very confusing. What is going on with this money? It looks like the judge is giving it to certain cities very little to rural areas. And I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because this week has been so packed with news and events and tragedies and all this kind of stuff. So the article is called Cities Critical of Hidalgo County's Distribution of COVID-19 Relief Funds. You go to the Monitor, look up relief funds on the Monitor, Google it. You'll see the whole article. I'm not gonna read the whole thing or go through it point by point, but I'm not going to use the word alarming because this is not the last funding act that is going to be coming out. There's a few more. And they do make me think, okay, well, maybe this will change or there's more money coming for the smaller areas or something like that. But even then, each award should be distributed the way it was meant to. So, very confusing stuff. But hopefully that gets more attention, and hopefully there's some follow-up to these funds that are coming down federally, that are coming down from the state, and are being distributed here locally in these areas, maybe in a way that benefits people, maybe in a way that only benefits some. So, and if you'd like to call in, if you know anything about it or would like to give your opinion about how the county and how these cities, distribute this money around these areas, and why we have such concentration of commercial centers in some areas, and then we have these, unincorporated colonias, all these areas, all these rural areas that need attention, that don't get it. Even when the federal government sends money and says, please give it to these people, we still don't get it. I mean, that's very important. That's something that we really need to look at. Judge Cortez's reasons for doing this are not very logical. They're not very rational. They don't make a lot of sense to me. I would like to hear more from him about it, honestly. And maybe even more from the finance reps that are backing these bills and all this kind of stuff, or voting on them actually. So it's something very important to look out for. If I see anything else, I'll post it up on social media and maybe comment it on the show. Another thing we wanted to talk about tonight is I had a really good show last week. I had a really good show last week, and I think this is the week where the show's going to be nuts. Oh my God. So, you know what? I'm just going to take the call anyway. I already fixed it, but I'm going to take the call anyway. How are you?
Good, Charlie. I'm here tech supporting.
Oh my God. You should just, I should just have you on as a guest host or something, but I was just saying that.
I'll do a regular call.
I was just saying last week, tech-wise, I had a beautiful show. It was great. Went by seamlessly. But I think this is the week where it's just, the setup is not right, I think, maybe.
Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So
everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
George Floyd right now?
Talking about George Floyd, talking about how I'm not going to show any protest images, not going to show images of the murder that happened. And what I was talking about, and I don't even know if it was on, is that there's a protest tomorrow in Edinburgh, actually. You're in Edinburgh.
Yeah, there's a demonstration at the university, I believe. There's
going to be a demonstration at the university. The guy who's putting it together, Zach Borgia, is going to be calling in a little bit to talk about that.
Oh, cool.
Talk about George Floyd, talk about what's going to be going on tomorrow at this solidarity protest, and a little bit more. Hopefully everything works.
Yeah,
if it doesn't, you can call
stunning.
Again.
We've been kind of glued to Twitter, watching it all unfold over the last 48 hours now. It's pretty wild. Like,
right.
I just saw a posting, a family that there were fires that happened in Minneapolis last night, and a family that owned a restaurant that was, I guess, it caught fire because something else was set on fire, and it kind of transferred over to their building.
Oh my God!
It was like an Indian restaurant or a Pakistani restaurant. They made a statement today that where they basically said, our building, we're sad that it burned down, but there needs to be justice for what happened. Let our building burn, essentially.
Right.
It was so moving. It's so moving to read that.
I didn't see that.
That's pretty. And then all the bus drivers refusing to transport people who are being arrested at the demonstrations. It's like there's a lot of powerful solidarity going on right now. It's very moving.
There's a lot of solidarity happening now that we hadn't seen in instances previous, because this is something that's been going on forever, right? And demonstrations have been a result of this many times. And although there are still people out there, you see them on social media, and of course you see them out in these protests causing trouble and things like that, there's less of that now. I feel like there's much more support. Do you feel that it's different this time?
I think I can't help but think that the coronavirus and everybody being at home for an extended period of time recently has changed the way people are interpreting this event.
Right.
We all had a big pause button put on our lives, and I think people have had an opportunity maybe to contemplate how things maybe aren't working the way they ought to be, and it's things seem to be kind of in a free fall,
right.
in terms of our response and how everybody's dealing with everything, and yeah, it does seem different. It does seem different this time. It seems much bigger and much more intentional. With
My
the
God.
people. I am concerned. I am concerned for the folks who are out there. I mean, like, obviously this is like a big thing that's going on, and they're participating in. But it's like that virus is still out there, and these people are all in large group gatherings, and what was going on a few weeks ago with the people who were having those massive demonstrations for like the hair salons and stuff. It's like it's the same danger that they're in, even if the cause is maybe
right.
a lot more righteous. So
it's one of the things I wanted to ask Zach about when he comes on, and I didn't see that on the Facebook event. Maybe when people get there, There will be somebody maybe distributing masks for people who may not have any, or hand sanitizer, and maybe there will be some rules about distancing as well. I would love to see that. I don't know if that's something that is forefront in people's minds right now. Obviously, what's going on is very intense for a lot of people, and I do wish to be respectful of that, but it's just one of the things that that we'll see in the coming days as this unfolds. Hopefully, we don't have anything where super spreading occurred because of one of these protests or solidarity protests or something like that. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens there.
I feel like it's kind of inevitable. I mean, especially considering how many of these are occurring throughout the country, and
Right.
how many people seem to be turning out at them. And these are major cities, so it's like, yeah, we're in one of these situations where it seems like just a lot of stuff is all happening on top of itself. Like, we're just having these kind of layerings of I don't know what you call it. I don't want to say bad, but like they're just like these events are happening on top of one another, and so
Right.
just because one bad thing is happening doesn't mean that the other one's stopped all of a sudden. And
Right, that's true.
We're going to be going into hurricane season soon. It's like that's a thing that's
Oh, my
probably
God.
going to affect the valley on top of all these other things. So
I don't mean to make light of the situation, but a hurricane on a protest during the pandemic, that's got to be 2020 right there.
That's 2020 right there. Put that on a T-shirt. There you go. Oh, and then a
Charlie,
rocket
thanks
blew
for-
up today. A rocket blew up. today.
I saw that
So,
right
like,
before the show.
all of these things
At Boca
all these
Chica.
things happen. It's funny though. I mean, like I read
Oh,
that
my God.
earlier this afternoon, and I had already forgotten about it because of all
Yeah.
the other things happening. That happened today, like here.
I can't believe it.
You know,
Yeah,
the
it's
giant,
too
the
much.
giant rocket exploded. It's too much.
It's too much stuff. It's too much stuff. And you have things like what I mentioned before with Hidalgo County. The way they're distributing funds for COVID is not right, and I think people aren't even
Right.
noticing. They're not even paying attention. So it's
I
too
think,
much.
I think we're asking for people to pay attention to a lot of things all at once, and I think that the people who are out to do bad know this and are going to try to
Right.
be getting away with a lot right now. It's just
Oh, my God.
it's. I mean, you see that at all levels. You see that in the Attorney General's office, with them just kind of dismissing charges against people. The Congress people who had done insider trading and had a coronavirus, all their charges magically disappeared. So there's a lot of
That's
there's a lot
right.
of bad going on right now. There's a lot of bad behavior happening right now.
I
And,
think partly it comes from the top. Partly it comes from the top. Partly it's because of this administration. I mean, if you think about how different this response to COVID has been under this administration, different of how it would have been under different administrations. I mean, this is an administration that basically dismantled the department for handling this.
And actively, and just pulled us out of the WHO today. That was
Right.
the response to pull us
Right.
out of the WHO. So it's like it's. I think calling it incompetence is kind of like it's dangerously underestimating what it really is. I think it seems very intentional to me. So
I think so.
So yeah, I mean, and things keep exploding. So
Right.
we keep having to reorient ourselves and like not aren't able to pay as close of attention to it as it would be if only one bad thing happened at a time.
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, we have an election coming up, which I think is very
Allegedly.
important. Allegedly.
I
my God.
I hope we have an election coming up.
No, we have an election. Come on, we got an
that would be
election
nice.
coming up. We've always been able to do this. We've always been able to do this. We can't. I mean, we got to do it. This.
You mean get an election? Yeah, I mean, I guess.
At least have it.
Like a lot of hanging chads in Florida might disagree, but
Oh
but no,
my
I hear ya.
God. Oh my Lord. We'll try to do the best we can.
But yeah, everybody's got to do the best they can. They have to keep themselves safe as much as possible. Look out for the people around us who can't do that as well. And that's really all we
Right.
can. And if anything, these expressions of solidarity in these major cities, if anything, they show us that, like, even in the face of all this stuff, it's still possible to care for the people, around you, the people in your immediate area of influence. There's certain things we will
Right.
never have any control over: pandemics, hurricanes, rocket explosions. But like, we can still look out for the people who are around us.
I think so. I think so. Thank you so much for your help on the audio, and thanks for calling in, Charlie.
Okay, have a good show. Bye.
Thank you. All right. So then we got audio fixed, and we're gonna have Zach Borgia calling in a little bit to talk about the solidarity protests going on tomorrow in Edinburgh. He's going to be calling in just a little bit. And while we're waiting for him, I just want to mention that there are organizations that we can donate to. We're far away, and looks like Zach's on the phone, and we'll have some of the. I'll mention some of those organizations before this. Okay, so I think every time I change scenes, my audio goes out, but I'm starting to get smart about it because I just turned it back on, so people should be able to hear us right now. I'm live with Zach Borgia. Now, Zach, you are organizing a solidarity protest tomorrow at UTRGV. You're a political science major. You're a student there. Tell me a little bit about your impression of the events that you have been seeing unfold over the past week.
So, I am working with a few other people to organize this whole solidarity protest. It's actually not at our UTRGV. It's over there on University Drive at the Edinburgh City Hall. And as a political science major, I seen this. It's very interesting to see these types of horrible events unfold before our very own eyes. It's crazy for me personally, as a political science major, as pretty much any political science major that's seeing this. It's because we're studying current events, we're studying society, we're studying, how to handle this type of stuff. And it's crazy because we look at it like in books, you look at it on, PowerPoint presentations or in class and whatnot. And then you actually get to see it happen real life in person. It's crazy that we're studying these types of things, that happened so long ago, or we're studying how to handle this type of stuff, and it's literally going to be written about in history books in 30, 40, 50, 60 years, where political science majors will be, in class reading about what's going on now. It's just insane, and personally, that's exactly why I help and am trying to make a difference by organizing these types of things. So I know that I and the rest of the people who have the same beliefs as I do know we're on the right side of history.
Right. Now, you're a political science major and you're an activist. Obviously, you tend to maybe hang out with a lot of people who think in a similar way. But as you have organized this protest and as you have promoted it and all this, have you seen any kind of pushback from either the student or larger Rio Grande Valley community towards something like this? What kind of reception are you getting as you come upon the protest tomorrow?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. We are definitely getting a little bit of pushback. I know personally what to look out for, and some of the warning signs to make sure things are contained and safe. This isn't my first rodeo when it comes to social activism and putting together protests and whatnot. I remember I was involved in a protest back in 2016 for Black Lives Matter. It was a candlelight vigil, and I remember there was massive amount of pushback from the Rio Grande Valley's Blue Lives Matter chapter. I remember they were trying to literally shut us up and quiet us down by revving their motorcycle engines and trying to literally silence us and threaten us and everything with, their motorcycles. It was very, very intense. I haven't been able to see that level of pushback from conservatives or people with differing opinions at this point with this protest, but we are preparing
Right.
for, the worst. We're preparing to, have any opposition, and we've made it clear to all the protesters and everyone involved that we have a strict zero tolerance policy for engaging with any type of opposition, if that will be verbally, if that will be physically, even emotionally. It's just,
Sure.
if they are going to spend their, especially now in the pandemic, spend their time protesting the murder of protesting the murder of a black man who did absolutely nothing wrong, then they absolutely have no better thing to do with their life, and I don't think we need to be giving them any time of our life, if you know what I mean. Aside from that,
Right.
I haven't really seen major opposition aside from some actual students here at UTRGV. I've seen a few posts that people have shared this event saying stuff like,
Right.
quote, just a bunch of attention seekers are, oh, let me know like when this is going to go down so I can know to get a Target or a Best Buy. Or I've seen
Right.
some people saying like, oh, this is such a huge waste of time. Why are we protesting this when there's no black people in the valley? And honestly, that's one of the most disgusting things I've seen, is just ignoring, even if it's a small population of black people here in the valley. It's absolutely disgusting to see people just, disregard their life, just disregard their community
Yeah.
by saying that there's saying that, oh, why are we protesting this? There's no community here. That's absolute bullshit to me, because yes, of course there's black people here, and I've spoken with them. I've listened to their stories. There is rampant amount of racism in the valley, and to have people just go off saying, oh, there's no black community here. Why are we protesting this? Or they're making a joke out of it because, they want to laugh, like, oh, let me go get Target.
Right.
Let me know when this happens. Let me go get Best Buy. I need a new TV. You don't need a new TV. You don't need to make jokes about that. You know who needs to father the kids? George Floyd. And it's just absolutely disgusting to see a lot of the valley push back.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've been focusing on as I've talked to people about this over the last couple of days is, I guess, helping them understand the situation in these communities, how these communities are, as the data shows, being ravaged by this racist police violence. Thousands of murders actually every year across the country, because I feel that a lot of people don't know that reality. They don't, they see what's on the news, but they're not aware, or maybe know the extent of what is going on in these communities. It's terrible. So from what you've seen, and obviously you interact in this arena a lot more than I do currently, do you think that that's enough to change people's minds, to help them understand the situations going on in these black communities that are being subject to this kind of racism and violence and murder? And so, or do you think it's going to take a lot more than that? And I'm asking specifically about the Rio Grande Valley. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I do not think this will be enough. This definitely is not going to be enough, but it's a definite start to, helping push the valley in the right place when it comes to progress. I know, as you know, I've lived here in the valley my entire life. I know the type of culture that the Rio Grande Valley kind of harbors in our minds, in our culture,
Right.
in just our way of life. It's very, very anti-black and very racist. So it's going to be very, very hard to try and open.
We need to talk about it.
To open up people's minds here, or even talk about that type of stuff here. So yeah, it's definitely not going to be enough. But it's going to start, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to make so many people here in the valley uncomfortable. What we're doing, it's always
Right.
been uncomfortable. It's always going to make people uncomfortable when they have to face something that they don't like. I remember people got real uncomfortable when there was a Black Lives Matter rally here in 2016 over there in Archer Park, where they marched from Archer Park to the police station and marched and chanted. And
I didn't even know, and you mentioned this earlier, but I didn't know, maybe I should have known, that there's a Blue Lives Matter chapter here in the Rio Grande Valley. How large is the membership for this group? And I don't know if you know that or not.
I'm not too sure. As far as I know, back when I was there and I was just like a little, like 16, 17-year-old protester at that rally in McAllen, I'm not too sure because I remember being there and I remember
Yeah.
seeing a good amount, maybe like 20 to 35 blue lives people with Blue Lives Matter flags
Mm.
with Trump 2016 flags on motorcycles just
Right.
circling, literally, not figuratively, but literally circling us on their motorcycles like
Well,
vultures.
right. I hope that we don't see anything like that tomorrow. I know that you all are out there in solidarity with
Hmm.
not just George Floyd, but all of these different organizations that are involved in this now.
Hmm.
And everything that you mentioned about people's attitude towards the protest is probably the one of the primary reasons why we need it so badly, and to
Oh
have
yeah.
more discourse about this in our community, because everything that you're saying is true. And I myself, talking about this on social media, obviously we're in a pandemic now, over text with a lot of, my contacts, letting them know about your protest and everything going on, letting them know to donate and all this kind of stuff. A lot of pushback and a lot of, more than anything, like I mentioned before, misunderstanding of what is
Hmm.
happening in these communities. I think they just don't get it because they don't realize just the level of racism and the level of violence that these communities are subject to literally all the time. And it's
Hmm.
very immense, and we have all the data to show that. It's very clear that all of these police departments need to be intervened with. Maybe, we need the Justice Department, we need the FBI to come in and turn these precincts inside out. Do you see that? So we want justice for George Floyd, but the problem is systemic. I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
top to bottom,
You
you know.
in my opinion, and these are my opinions, all my own. No one else is represented.
Sure.
We're not representing any with this protest of solidarity and call for justice. It's no organization or anything. It is simply a group of, I believe, 4 to 5 activists, including myself, who have gotten together and organized this within the span of a few days. But when it comes to my own beliefs personally, you're right. It is systematic. It is majorly systematic, and I know a lot of very like democratic liberals, very like centrist liberals, especially some that are elected now, or like HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, like liberals. They think they can
Right.
reform it. They think they can fix it. You can't fix something that's so broken that in the span of 72 hours, um, cops are used as a weapon to destroy black people's lives, or black people are used as scapegoats when white people don't want to deal with their own problems, or literally murdered with a cop's knee on their neck for literally 8
Right.
minutes, or screaming I can't breathe. There is absolutely no way you are going to be able to fix something that is broken beyond belief. When you break a glass on the floor, you do not try and tape it up. You
I
throw it
think
away
so.
because it is broken. There's no way you're going to be able to fix this systematic oppression that is so rampant within our country. There's absolutely no way you can fix it. You have to replace it, and I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. I just know it's not going to be able to be fixable at this point. It just can't be.
Right.
Um, Aside from that, I really quickly wanted to say
Sure.
something about our event. I am a Latinx brown person, but I in
Okay.
no way am black at all. So I never felt truly comfortable being a leader or a host for this type of
Okay.
event. We went ahead. So I did start it. I did organize it and everything, and I'm contributing somewhat to the conversation. But once everything starts to going, I'm going to work to make some introductions to mitigate, to keep people safe and everything, and help out with peacekeeping. But this isn't my conversation to lead. I want to sing some of our other hosts. Their names are Mackenzie. We have Rebecca. We have Dolores. I'm not going to name last names for safety reasons.
Sure.
But
Sure.
these amazing women have stepped up and become leaders in their community to go ahead and speak their truth about being Black women in the RGV and talk about their experiences with racism. They're going to be the ones leading the conversation at this event. They're going to be the ones sharing real racist stories and talk about how systematic oppression has really negatively impacted their life, and how
Right.
there's a rampant amount of racism and anti-Blackness. They're going to lead the conversation, and I'm gladly going to step back because this isn't my conversation. Because I know there was some criticism with that, and I wholeheartedly agree. I and other Latinx people do not need to be leading this conversation. If anything, we need to show like what we're doing is we're going to be showing solidarity. We're going to be showing
Absolutely.
our Black community here that we support them, we hear them, we understand them, and that we want to call for justice as well. But when it comes to this conversation, we're going to share our perspective, and we are not going to lead this. This is not our fight to fight. This is not our conversation to have, or it's not our conversation to lead. So I want to thank these amazing, powerful Black leaders in our community, and just for any Black person or any Black leader or any just Black citizen in the Rio Grande Valley, we invite you to come out, and we understand that in the Valley, it's very pro-police, it's very anti-Black, it's very racist, but we are progressing, and even though it might be a small number of progressives like us, like ourselves, we are going to mobilize,
Right.
we are going to organize, and we are going to truly push this area and this region into the future to make sure that any anti-Blackness and any racism that runs through our community and runs through our culture is thrown out the window, because that's not going to happen here anymore. Then this is exactly why that's what I'm trying to do with this event, and that's what I'm going to try and do with these women to kind of transform the Valley and send a message to every Black member of our community in the Rio Grande Valley that they are seen, they are heard, they are safe, and they have
Absolutely.
support.
Absolutely. And one last thing that I wanted to ask you is, for people who maybe may not have been to an event like this before and want to show up in solidarity, or maybe are on the fence thinking about showing up, what are some of the things that you can tell them? What should they bring? What kind of safety precautions are going to be taken? What about COVID? Should people wear masks? Have you guys talked about that kind of stuff? What can people expect when they get there, and what rules should they follow?
Oh yeah, that's a wonderful question, and I'm so glad that you asked that, because we're literally having a organizers meeting over Zoom talking about all of these issues. So our policy, like I mentioned before, it's a zero tolerance to speak or talk or physically, interact with any type of counter protest that might show up to this event. So when it comes to safety, not only is one of our main concerns showing our solidarity, support, and calling for justice for the murder of our Black and brown brothers and sisters that are murdered just for existing in broad daylight, but it is definitely the safety of our protesters. So, like I said, we have that policy where they are not allowed to interact for their own safety, and if any of them are to feel unsafe, they are to let the organizers and the hosts know, and we are also going to try and have peacekeepers there that have volunteers throughout from the people that have been showing up or wanting to go to let us know. I personally will stand in between any single counter-protester who and any one of our protesters who are being threatened or feels unsafe, to make sure that they feel safe and put up that barrier between them. Aside from that, they are to let the hosts know, and we are going to do everything in our power to de-escalate the situation and to protect them, their views, and their literal physical bodies at any cost. Aside from
now,
that, go ahead.
Sure. Sorry. So now, will there be any considerations for COVID-19 safety at the event tomorrow for people who maybe have that in their mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to move on to that. So let me say that when it comes to COVID-19, that is one of our biggest things that we've been thinking about when it comes to organizing this. If you want to come to this protest and show solidarity, that's wonderful, but you are required, and it's one of the rules for this protest that we are going to make mandatory, is that you need to wear a mask. It doesn't matter if it's a cloth mask, if it's an N95 or N99 mask, if it's a surgical mask, just please, please, please wear a mask to curtail
Got
the
it.
spread of potential COVID-19 type of disease, type of virus or anything. So please
So
wear your
masks
mask.
required.
Yes, sir. Masks are absolutely required, and we are also going to ask that if you're going to come with someone in your household, you can go ahead and hang around them. You can hang around the person that's in your household that's been there for 2 weeks, a month of your own quarantine. That's totally fine. But with other people that haven't been in your household that you're going to interact with at these events, please stay at least 6 feet apart from that person. I know
Right.
it's not the ideal situation, and it's not going to be super duper amazingly comfortable to be 6 feet
It's
apart.
necessary.
It's necessary, yeah, because I know it's extremely important to show solidarity and protest and really, show up for our Black community here in the Valley and across America. But we also really, really, really are trying to make public safety a major issue as well. So we're going to try and mitigate that by having people be 6 feet apart from each other at all times.
Okay. So you mentioned also 415 West University is not campus. What is the actual venue?
The venue is going to be, if any of my Edinburgh people know, that is City Hall for Edinburgh.
City Hall. Got it.
Yes, on
Edinburgh City Hall.
Yes, sir. On the Facebook page or the Facebook group event, it has the exact address. All you need to do if you want to go, if you need any help finding out where that is, literally just type just press the address that is in the group or in the on the page or whatever, and it'll say, do you want to open on Apple Maps, do you want to open it on Google Maps or Bing Maps, whoever uses that, and then that'll show you exactly and give you directions. If not, just look up the City of Edinburgh City Hall, and it'll be over there. Right at that location, there is going to be parking right in front of City Hall where you can go ahead and park. We are going to meet in the courtyard area. It's a very big, very nice space, very, very open. And there's even, I believe, I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure across from City Hall and that little courtyard area is kind of like a bike/walkway leading down to a little kind of like gazebo. So if there's a major abundance of people,
right,
we can go ahead and have protesters stand there while they listen to some of the speakers talk about
spread out a little bit.
Yeah, they can stand there and listen to our speakers speak about youth racism, about standing in solidarity, calling for justice, all that good stuff. And I know after that we are going to go ahead and make the Valley very uncomfortable by standing 6 feet apart from each other with signs, with I believe usernames for the Freedom Fund and other Black organizations who are supporting the protesters in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, we're going to have their Venmos and Cash Apps and PayPal usernames. People can donate and make a tangible difference. But we're also going to have the names of the people or the Black men and women who have been murdered.
Fantastic.
And we're going to stand on the sidewalk right in front of University Drive. So any person who wants
Edinburgh
to go
City Hall.
That wants to go get Whataburger, Chick-fil-A, Con's Grill, anything on that main strip, if they want to go get that, they're going to have to pass by us and realize this is happening. The Valley's changing, and this is happening outside of our bubble that is, our Latinx RGV bubble. So we're really going to try and show it out.
Thank you so much. The George Floyd Solidarity Protest in Edinburgh happening at 2 p.m. at Edinburgh City Hall tomorrow. Masks and social distancing are required. Zach Borgia, thank you so much for calling in today and giving us details on this. And good luck with your event tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day, man. Thank you, everybody.
Likewise.
Bye.
Thank you so much. And right before we go to our main guest tonight, I just want to mention something. I want to follow up with something that Zach just said, and I had posted about it earlier. I want to let everybody know that the Facebook event page for this and all of the latest social media posts for tonight's episode have links to organizations that you can donate to that are doing work in these communities. There's Reclaim the Block, which is a nonprofit coalition that works to move funds away from police and towards real community building. So they're working in Minneapolis to sort of move funds away from these precincts, from these racist police precincts, and spend it on the community. That's reclaimtheblock.org. There's the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which bails out low-income people. It's a fund for getting people out of these situations where they're being held under bail. MinnesotaFreedomFund.org. Of course, Black Lives Matter, which everybody knows, BlackLivesMatter.com. They're now an international organization fighting against white supremacy everywhere and building local networks to help alleviate some of this inflicted violence in these communities. So that's BlackLivesMatters.com. And then one link that you're going to have to go on the post to click on is the George Floyd Memorial Fund. This is the official fund that's raising money for the family to cover funeral, burial, and legal expenses. So again, it's on the Facebook event. It's as a posted on there on the Facebook event. It's on the pages, and so it's all together there on my Twitter as well. If you're on YouTube right now, the latest promo that this was on had a little Twitter thread with all the links. So our next guest is Fish Fiorucci, and he's coming on the show to recap what has been going on for the past week, Brownsville Fashion Week, an entire week of fashion workshops and runway shows with some very talented people from all across the fashion scene in the Rio Grande Valley. We will be right back with Fish Fiorucci in just a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Fish Fiorucci on the Hotline cam. I'm just making sure I have my microphone on because I've been making the mistake of turning it off in some of these things. Fish, you are fresh off a whole week of putting these workshops together, live streaming a lot of live workshops, live streaming some pre-recorded runway shows, a mix of things every single day since was the first day was Saturday?
Yeah, the first day was Sunday. We kicked it off with an opening ceremony party and then drove straight into the fashion shows on Monday.
I actually dropped into the opening ceremony Zoom party, and it was really fantastic. You had some great DJs there, and you've had some great DJs at all of these events. And people can go to, as we're talking about this, if you want to know specific credits, you want to look up these DJs, you want to look at everybody who was involved, it's all on the event pages for Brownsville Fashion Week Online on Facebook. So those 4 words, Brownsville Fashion Week Online, it's all on there. The whole agenda, all the information, all the videos that we're going to show you tonight are on there. It's actually quite a lot of stuff. Very fascinating. I know the workshops themselves, the content of the workshops are not up now, but a lot of the runway shows are, and all kinds of credit for this kind of stuff. So one of the first things that I wanted to talk to you about was a little bit about how you got started in fashion. So go back before we get to Brownsville Fashion Week, which just happened. How did you get into fashion? What were some of your earliest experiences? Tell us a little bit about that.
All right. I just have to mentally prepare for this moment.
That's okay.
So we're gonna take it back to age 15. I know it's a very young age, and you probably think I wasn't doing anything at that age, but for a fact, I was doing my first fashion shows. I was producing my first fashion shows at that age, here in Brownsville specifically.
In Brownsville.
Yeah, I originally began with throwing club fashion shows. So I was running around Brownsville, going into all these clubs and talking to the owners and being like, look, I do fashion. I'm looking for a place to throw a fashion show at a reasonable price. Most clubs would let me do it for free there as long as people were buying drinks. I'm over here like a 15-year-old running events all over Brownsville at all these random bars and clubs and stuff like that.
Right.
Then I realized it was, I had a show at Studio 69 here in Brownsville, and it was the only gay club we had here, and I did that at age 15. And it was an experience for me. I loved every moment of it, but I realized I didn't want to be in that crowd anymore. I didn't want to be in that atmosphere anymore. I wanted to have a real stage presence and locations that weren't very common that people would go to all the time or would even imagine that a fashion show would take place in. So I started venturing out into, I guess, casting for my own locations, like going around Brownsville, finding weird locations that I thought I could use. And I started getting bigger and bigger and bigger with the events that I was throwing, and then walked my way into a meeting one day with the city of Brownsville, like last year actually, and made my way into Brownsville Fashion Week, and that's how it all came about. But originally, when I began, I was working with people from McAllen who were doing fashion shows, and I saw a lot of what McAllen did in their fashion shows, and it hasn't changed till this day. And I think it is by far like the shittiest fashion scene is in McAllen, and it's like all the fashion shows happen at like Rooftop in downtown, and I can't even get into Rooftop because they're homophobic.
Oh no!
And I mean, I haven't seen any other cute runway shows there yet, but for the majority of fashion, I like to focus on Brownsville a lot, so it's my favorite place.
A lot of shade thrown tonight. The one thing I don't know too much about fashion, here in the Rio Grande Valley. It's something that I am just superficially researching about now for this interview. Definitely not to the depth someone like you has. So the one thing I can't concur in all of that is that I have heard that rooftop is extremely homophobic in downtown McAllen. Unfortunately, I've heard that from many people. But I guess what is the biggest, to add some depth to that, what's the biggest difference between some of these fashion shows that you describe and the stuff that you're doing today for Brownsville Fashion Week? What's the differentiator, I guess, for you?
Well, the most biggest factor in our fashion versus their fashion is that we're very on hand, homemade. I guess we built this family of artists around town who have put in the work, who know how to design, who do their own clothes, who make their own clothes, and go beyond that. And people in McAllen are very focused on fast fashion and selling the latest trend and the cheapest materials. And
got it.
You can go. That's all I have
Fast
to say
fashion
about
is
that.
something that I am familiar with because I actually had, and I've never mentioned this on the show, but I actually do freelance business development. But I had a client who was doing an application related to clothing, actually not fashion so much, but the sort of manufacturing side of material. And so I'm familiar with fast fashion, and what you're saying basically is everybody that you worked with fabricates the designs that they have on these runway shows, and the fashion shows that you're criticizing basically work with stuff that take off the shelf, fast fashion, maybe not even very high quality pieces, and that's what they're doing runway shows with.
Yeah, I mean, what bothers me the most is that when people go to fashion shows, they're there for the experience. They're there to, watch the clothes, judge the clothes, and potentially invest in the clothes later when it comes out into production. But
Right.
the clothes that's constantly coming out in the fashion shows in the McAllen area are, being made in a sweatshop somewhere, and a worker is only getting paid 7 cents to make each top, each bottom. And it's very common with these shops in McAllen. You can tell where they buy their clothes from. You can tell what fast fashion is and who's supporting it and who's putting the effort into it in McAllen. And it's it's a real thing. A lot of people are into fast fashion and they don't even know it.
But there have to be some original designers, fashion designers in McAllen, one or two.
Oh, I'm sure there are. We worked with a few in Brownsville Fashion Week this season. One of them was from Edinburgh, I believe. And we reach out to them. We don't leave anybody out here in the Valley when it comes to us looking for designers and stylists and anybody in between for that reason. But what we do is we try to highlight that more here in the Valley versus highlighting fast fashion brands or local stores here who buy fast fashion and resell it at a extremely high price, and it's a really cheap material that's not going to last you very long. So
do you feel like you have influenced the local fashion scene in that way? I mean, obviously you sound like you'd like for these things to progress a little bit in terms of the amount of creativity and work people are putting into it. Do you feel that things have changed a little bit over the course of the time that you have been doing it? It sounds like you've been doing it for a little while if you had your first fashion show at 15.
Well, it took me a while to want to give myself credit for. It's hard for me to say that I influenced people here in the Valley to step up their pussy game and start producing better fashion shows and source locally versus sourcing in China or something. But I feel like for a long time when I was studying fashion here in the Valley, when I was looking for all the working people in the industry here who were doing fashion shows and styling and designing and stuff like that, it led me to a dead end, and it was something that didn't benefit me whatsoever. I didn't learn very much when I was working here in the Valley at a very young age, and it wasn't until I left to New York when I realized that everybody here is doing it wrong, and I mean, for the most part, um, I didn't take credit for the fashion shows that I was doing until Brownsville Fashion Week came along. Like all the other fashion shows that I've done in the past, it took me a very long time to want to promote it or kind of talk about it. So Brownsville Fashion Week is definitely my bigger project that I have a lot of money invested in and a lot of time and a lot of effort and I have a lot of flaws that I don't really talk about, so people don't really see them happening. But there are things that I've learned that I need to fix, and things that I've studied in Fashion Week in New York and in
Right.
Paris and in London that I want to make active here in the Valley. And that's well, the first thing is like creating roles, you know, and establishing those roles of what your job is and what you do here. And that's the very first thing we need to do here in the Valley to create like a very steady industry here for fashion. Like when you tell somebody, when somebody comes and tells me that they want to do something in fashion but they don't know what they want to do, but all they say is like, but I love dressing, I love the way I dress, I love dressing people up. You know, it's like these are common things that people want to do in the industry, and there's a name
Right.
for it, and it's called a stylist. You know, it's a fashion stylist, and that's something that is not very common here. It's very hard to find a fashion stylist here. Like when I go to Austin and San Antonio and I have an event there and I don't want to dress myself, I go to a fashion stylist and I hire them and they bring me
Right.
outfits and they dress me up. But
So
that's not
maybe,
something that we have here in the Valley. So that's something that I want to establish
right.
more is roles in the industry, from stylist to designer to makeup artist to hairstylist to grooming to everything in between from there.
So maybe what we're talking about is professionalism and a more mature network of creative professionals in this area. Maybe this is something that you were exposed to in your time in New York. You mentioned that. And you're somebody that I actually have followed on social media for a while now. We've known each other for a bit. But tell me, briefly, give me a real quick timeline, I guess, of your time in New York, because I've seen you spend time there and have come back. You've gone and done campaigns and different shows and stuff like that. Spend a little bit of time over there. I guess give me a bird's eye view of how you ended up going to New York in the first place, and what are some of the things that you ended up doing there and bringing back to the Valley, like some of this stuff that we're talking about now.
So the first trip I took to New York, I was 17. I was in high school. I didn't tell my parents I was going to go for spring break. I kind of just woke up in the morning early to drive myself to Austin and was like, I'm going to go to Austin. I'm going to fly out from there to go to New York. Um, and it was a really chaotic moment in my life. Um, I had just gotten arrested at that
Oh
like
my
maybe
God.
previous week for trespassing on somebody's property. Um, and then the next week I was like, oh my gosh, and now I'm gonna have to fly out to New York and my parents don't know. One, they already hate me, and then two, like I'm gonna leave them for a week and I didn't tell them. So I fly out to New York. I make my rounds. I meet students who are going to Parsons and the art school, and
Hmm.
I meet some very well-known photographers who are working for the biggest industry, you know, in the world, which is, you know, in New York happening, and they work for the biggest agencies there, and I did a few photo shoots. I went to a few parties. I snuck into a few parties. I had my brother's ID at the time, and I was just using it, and they never told me anything about that. Um,
Yeah.
and then I came back to high school, like, you know, the week after,
Hmm.
and I started posting all these photos of me, you know, half naked, and you know, something that's not normally uh common when you are beginning as a model. For me, that was my
Sure.
very first kind of exposure to the modeling industry, and it was shooting, you know, nude implied. And so that was the very first groundbreaking thing for me, I guess. You know, it really got me out of my
Hmm.
shell, made me very comfortable with who I am. And so when I came back, I was just so in this mindset that I was going to go back to New York right after I graduated high school and
Right.
do Fashion Week. I wasn't signed to anybody when I had first gone. I had talked to a few people who were signed, and I just had the goal in my mind that I was going to go back. I was going to make my rounds again and talk to the right people and get signed. And so that's exactly what I did when I graduated high school. I actually went to Austin first. Spent 6 months there, met an agent, and she took me to New York for a month, and then
Now this is a
I got
modeling agent.
yeah, this is a modeling agent. So I got signed at
Modeling
18.
agent.
Yeah, and so I got signed at 18, went to New York, spent a month there, and did Fashion Week, and that was my first Fashion Week at 18. Um, I was still doing online school at the time, and I'm still doing online school. I've been a full-time student for a very long time.
So you were modeling at New York Fashion Week?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting to book any shows at all my first season. I was staying in a model house with five other models, male models, and we're all, in
Right.
inflatable beds and in one room. Um, and I was like, okay, we're all going to the
New
same
York life.
castings. Yeah, we're all going to the same casting. We're all going to the same meetings. And I was like, they're obviously hotter than I am, and they have better bodies than I do. They all have six packs and stuff like that. And I thought maybe I was going to be the one that wasn't going to book anything and then make my way home and cry and everything like that. But I ended up being the model who booked the most shows.
Wow.
And the shows that I booked were the biggest shows out of all the models who were walking with me that season, and who I
Right.
was staying with. So I did a lot for my first season in Fashion Week, and it was all because of my first agent, and I feel like that was definitely my first like big jump into the industry, because after that I was able to uh, do my own talking and introduce myself to more people, and I've been working with the same designers since, and they've been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, I kind of just follow along with that,
Right. So
So
maybe you
it's a
learned a
very
lot of the
cool thing.
business in New York and have come back to Brownsville trying to implement a lot of that here in
Well,
as
I go
much
to
of
New York. I go to New York like 6 months out of the year, and it's like
got it.
spread out throughout the year. And the rest of the 6 months, I'm either traveling around the world or I'm in Brownsville. And so
Yeah.
for the most part, you'll catch me in Brownsville every once in a while, but for the most part, around the months of February,
Right.
June, and September, I'm usually in New York. So and staying there for a very long time. I don't just go for weeks now. I go for months.
Yeah. And over the past couple of months, one of the things that has been the most visible about you for people, I guess, everywhere is your involvement with House Labs. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with Lady Gaga's House Labs and the work that you did for her.
Her album just came out today
Her
in the
album did just
US.
come out today, Chromatica. I've only heard half. I didn't have time to hear more. I didn't have time to hear more. I've heard half of Chromatica, and I will listen to the last half tomorrow.
Yeah. I was gonna go to Target and go buy it, but I didn't have time. I I'm still signed to the same agent who booked me for the shoot. But I reached out to my agent because he sent an email and was like, I'm looking for models to submit for this casting. I can't name what the casting's for, but this is what the requirements are.
Mm,
And
right.
so I was like, okay, I read it for the first week, and it was like, whatever, I'm not gonna do it if I don't know what the job is. If I they also the it was weird, it was funny. They were like, we can't tell you
Very
what the job
secretive.
name. Yeah, very secretive. So they were like, we can't tell you what the job is, but you're gonna be getting paid this much, and the amount was
Right.
in the thousands. So it was obviously a big campaign. I didn't know what it was for. I didn't submit when I had read the email at first, but then I got back to it. And then he sent me the instructions on what I should do for my audition video. I'm giving you guys the actual story and how it happened, and this is how most jobs get booked now when I'm in Texas and I have to work everywhere else in the world. I do things by email, and I have to do videos, and I have to send them out. So the video requirements were third face, like at the camera, and 360 body view angle, and that was pretty much it. And then also just a runway walk. And so it was very simple, but the only thing that just kept me wondering what the job was still going to be. Was it they asked me to serve face? So obviously I knew it was a makeup brand from there. And so I did my video, submit my video, wait a few weeks, and I'm in Brownsville when all this is happening. A few weeks come by, and I'm on this historic tour in downtown at a private school, a Catholic school, and I walk into the chapel, and the chapel is all purple. I'm having a very spiritual moment, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I feel something very, very heavy on my body. And as soon as I walk out of the chapel, I get on my phone, I check my email, and it was an email from a random person that I don't even know. And it was like, hi, Fish, do you have a social security number to work in the U.S.? And that was it. You know, it didn't have any other, literally that's all it said. And
yeah,
I know that sounds sketchy.
More mystery.
I know you're not supposed to reply to emails like that, but I replied and I was like, yes, I do, and here it is. And then he emailed me back and was like, okay, we have you on as an option for a beauty shoot that's happening in LA. Where are you located right now so we can book your flight? And I was like, I was freaking out. I was like having like a trip, and I felt like I was on acid or something like that. And I'm over here at this like private Catholic school, like going crazy in my mind.
You've got the gig.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I don't know what the gig is. I
still don't know.
In a few days.
Oh my God.
I want to scream.
It's like a shoot for Batman or something.
Yeah, I pull my friend aside and I'm like, read this. I know it sounds crazy, and I know they want to fly me out to LA, and I don't know who they are, but I know it's going to be something good. So I go to Instagram, I check my phone, and Sarah Tano, which is Lady Gaga's makeup artist, follows me on Instagram. And I didn't know who she was at first. And so I go through her Instagram, and I'm like, okay, cool. She has a bunch of Lady Gaga photos on there. Obviously, she did her makeup a few times. And her bio at the time said Marc Jacobs brand ambassador. So I thought maybe I had booked a job for Marc Jacobs. I thought it was a job for Marc Jacobs, Rihanna Fenty, or that, and that was it. I didn't have any idea that it was going to be for Lady Gaga until I had got to the airport and landed in LA, and then checked the call sheet right before I arrived, and then read it a little bit. It didn't have Lady Gaga's name on it. Like, it had everybody else's name that you can think of on her team, but it didn't have her name on it, so it was still very hidden. And so
I'm gonna play the House Labs trailer that Lady Gaga put together that you're in. But before I play it, I want to give context to some people who may be watching who don't know what House Labs is. So House Labs is I guess it's like a portion of what is known as House of Gaga, which is the creative team around Lady Gaga. We're talking about costumes, makeup, sets, lighting, different kinds of visual representation, the whole shebang, right? The creators around this are known as House of Gaga. House Labs is the division that does the makeup and the fragrances, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And they put out Fame and all that kind of stuff. The perfume, Lady Gaga perfume.
Yep.
And so this is the trailer for a make. I guess it was either for a fragrance or a makeup line that was coming out of House Labs, or is this perhaps a trailer for House Labs itself? Actually, you haven't seen this clip, so let me just play it, and then we'll give a little bit more context after you see what it is.
The last thing the world needs is another beauty brand. But that's too bad. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but at House Laboratories, we say beauty's how you see yourself. Your glam, your expression, your artistry. We want you to love yourself. Our house, your rules. House Laboratories. battle for your life.
I really love the gold makeup that you have on there. But you shot, I mean, that was shot in L.A.
Yeah, it was all shot in LA.
My God. And so I guess what were some of the other, you've got this gig and you're working with House Labs. What were some of your other experiences working with this team that you remember?
I remember everything very clearly, and I'm so excited that this is the first time I'm able to speak of anything because one, I was on a really, really, really detailed NDA agreement between me and House of Gaga for the last 2 years, and since the album is out now, I am just able to talk all about it. So
fantastic.
So when I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I've been waiting for a very long time to talk all about it.
I didn't know that.
But so when where should I begin? So when Brownsville Fashion Week was happening last year, I was getting booked for this. And so I was flown out to LA, and I had missed first Fashion Week last year because I was shooting with Lady Gaga. And so it was a very chaotic moment for me. I was on set, crying multiple times alone in the rooms because I was having designers cancel on me. I was having models cancel on me. I was getting just calls back and forth, people yelling at me, and just everything going crazy, everything going wrong. Back home, and I wasn't there to do anything about it. And also they had taken my phone away on set, and I was shooting for 4 days in a row, and they took away my phone the moment I walked in, and they gave it back to me when I walked out because we can't talk about anything, we can't record anything, we can't film anything.
No leaks,
literally.
Oh my goodness.
The fun part about it was
that's tighter than the Trump administration.
The crazy thing is, I had asked Lady Gaga. I was like, girl, do you want to smoke some weed? I have some right here. And she was like, I can't. They don't let me smoke anybody's weed. I have my very own. Like she has her own special made weed. But so she has a very tight team watching what she smokes. I was kind of offended. I was like, girl, I just bought this at the dispensary down the street. Whatever.
Well, it's a very it's a very cool gig, and hopefully we'll get to see more work from you like that in the coming months, in the coming years. And this week you put together Brownsville Fashion Week, and I was very intrigued to see everything that was going on there. I wanted to sit down with you tonight, do a quick recap, day by day, of some of the stuff that occurred over the past 7 days. We already mentioned that it started with it turned into like a dance party. Even I danced on the opening reception. Even I ended up dancing on that Zoom call. But I wanted to show people talk about some of the workshops, and then show people some of the runway shows as well. On Monday, you did the very first workshop for Brownsville Fashion Week, Modeling 101, how to break into the industry. And of course, everything was remote, so it was a Zoom workshop. You held this. What were some of the things that you talked about during this workshop?
I was 100% honest with everybody who had joined the workshop, and I told them that I was just going to throw everything at them and give them the truth about everything. I talked to them about the harassment that I've dealt with in the industry, how I joined the industry, how it all began, and pretty much the pros and cons of joining the industry. It was very detailed and very personal for me to give that workshop, and I had never done one before like this.
I don't have to be deep into fashion to know that it's an extremely difficult industry to break into, and it takes a lot of persistence and a lot of the right kind of know-how, I guess.
It's a lot of mental work.
How many people attended this workshop? And the reason I asked that is because I'm kind of trying to put a picture in my mind about the size of the group of people who are trying to break into the industry as models in the Valley, very similar to what you're doing.
Well, first I'll start by saying that I have my own casting agency here in Brownsville, and for the most part, I try to get a hold of the models that are trying to break into the industry, and then I kind of,
Right.
baby them and manage them for a little bit. I don't have contracts with them, but I do like to lead them in the right direction because I don't like when people get scammed here when they try to get into fashion and they have to pay a bunch of money to do all these random things that you don't actually have to do. So I do that on the side. But aside from that, each
Right.
workshop did have, my workshop had like 20 people, and all the other workshops had about like 10 to 15 people. So,
Yeah, we actually, now that you mentioned that, we actually talked a couple of weeks ago about this interview and some of the things we wanted to talk about. And you did mention some of these agencies that are here locally that take people in, give them the idea that they're going to have a modeling career as a result of working with these agencies. And it turns out they're maybe not as upfront as they should be about some of their practices. And as a result of what you said, I ended up doing a little bit of research about it. And I'm not going to name names or anything, but it's not easy. It's not easy. You got to do your homework to figure out who to work with. It's easy, I guess, if you know nothing. If you know nothing, it's easy to get taken advantage of if you're trying to be a model. Unfortunately, but you did this workshop about breaking into the industry. Like you said, very honest, very raw about your experiences. So very helpful on that first day. I'm going to play a clip. I'm going to play the runway show for Victor Lomas. Tell us a little bit about Victor and this runway show that he put together.
So Victor Loomis is originally from San Marcos, and I met them just a few months ago, and I just spoke so highly of Brownsville, and I was like, you have to show during Brownsville Fashion Week. Your work is cool, you're up and coming, and I think, we could appreciate your talent down here. And so he is currently living with me at the moment, and we've been working on Brownsville Fashion Week together while he's working on his line. So he put together this line for Brownsville Fashion Week, and when I submitted it to the city and they watched it for the first time, they were like, we don't know if we could play this yet. And they were like, first of all, we can't play this. They were originally going to air it at 8 p.m. every night on BTV. And they were like, well, since after we watched this, we realized that we can't have it play that early, even though 8 p.m. is really late. And so they said, they're gonna start playing it at 10 p.m. every night in BTV, only because that's when the younger people are up to watch it, and those are the only people who are going to, not complain about it or not think anything else of it. So
was this live streamed? Was this live streamed on the Brownsville channel, after all, or not?
Yeah, it was actually. So
it was streamed.
It's supposed to air tonight, actually, again at 10:30. And this is the last show that's supposed to air tonight at 10:30, along with all the other 4 shows from the past days are going to air after that as well too.
Right. I saw some of the Right. I saw some of the photos from Brownsville Fashion last year, and you all did that in the street, and you had some beautiful shots. This is very different, and I actually have a lot of appreciation for this aesthetic as well. You guys wanted to do everything remotely, so you shot all the runway shows in this house. You edited together. You got some really beautiful shots, and of course, all of the original pieces in this particular video by the designer Victor Lomas. Currently in Brownsville, part of Brownsville Fashion Week. I guess, we're not talking to Victor on his pieces tonight, but what can you tell us about some of these designs?
Well, all the designs are specifically gender neutral, and they're supposed to be both for male and female and whatever you identify as. So that's why you can catch all these models on here, and this show is specifically labeled as non-binary. So he's a queer designer, and his intentions were to mix both male and female on the show, and just throw it out to the city and see what their reaction would be. So it was I was very not scared. I was just worried that the city was going to be like, no, we can't do this, we can't air it. but they took it pretty nicely, and I'm glad
With
that's how it turned out.
with minimal reservations.
Yeah, with the minimal reservations.
Minimal
And we
reservations.
also, like, the whole show was filmed on a BlackBerry and on a
Really?
Handycam. Yeah.
Oh my God, I
And-
love that.
And the
I
only
love
reason
that-
we did that was because, we didn't want to hire a whole team of people to do this work for us.
Absolutely.
When we've never done a project like this before, we don't know what we want from a videographer if they were going to do this. We didn't know what we were going to do with this whole project in general. It was just kind
Right.
of like the day came, we took it show by show, outfit by outfit, and I wasn't expecting it to turn out as good as it did. But
Yeah.
the shows throughout the week, they have been really crazy good and amazing, and I'm really happy at the way that they turned out. So
I swear I was going to ask you when I saw your trailer, and you sent me that early on, the trailer for the show that I played at the top of the first hour on this show, and some of this stuff as well. I was going to ask you, God, what app did you guys use to get this retro effect? It's really cool. but it's real. You shot it on a BlackBerry.
yeah,
I mean, look at the lights on there, the way that looks and everything. Just to talk about the video itself, I really like the aesthetic, the way that you shot this. I think it's much more interesting than if you had done a really clean, modern, expensive camera shot or something like that. I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. The way that you did these runway shows online, live stream runway shows on this type of equipment, looks fantastic. Really intrigued by the non-binary fashion pieces by, again, Victor Lomas. This is the work of Victor Lomas, local Brownsville designer, and the runway show is actually quite long. And you guys, like I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, you can go to Brownsville Fashion Week online, Facebook, and watch all of the runway shows in their entirety, and take a look at a list of some of the workshops that went on this past week. Now, on Tuesday, and I think you had a workshop and runway show almost every day. I think that was the format you were doing. Tuesday, you had a photography workshop. This was actually done by Brenda Bazan. And Brenda, if you're watching, I sent you messages about marking some of your photos on the show during the segment, and I just didn't have time to put that video together because just of the amount of content, and I was pretty short on time. But Brenda Bazan has some amazing portrait photography. I don't even want to call it portrait photography because it's beyond that. But you can find her on Instagram at Brenda Bazan, and you can also look at her website, brendabazan.com. Did you sit in for this workshop on shooting fashion editorials?
I was intending on sitting in on it, but the model that we had ended up canceling last minute, so I had to fill in as the model. And I mean, I've shot with Brenda multiple times before, so it wasn't
right.
Something
I didn't know who she
issue
was
for her.
before I looked at all the material, and I was surprised to actually find out that I had seen her photo work here and there. I had seen her photos, especially the people who sat in for some of these photos around the Rio Grande Valley community, from the professional community and the creative community. Definitely check out her Instagram at Brenda Bazan. Really cool stuff. And she did a workshop on editorial fashion photography for Tuesday. Now, this runway show I'm about to play is actually from Virgo Martinez. This was Tuesday night's runway fashion show. And we've already mentioned the aesthetic and how this was put together. Tell us a little bit about Virgo Martinez, where he's from, and his work, and how you all ended up working together on this.
So Virgo was actually a part of the workshop, and he styled a few pieces for the photography workshop, and so Brenda was shooting me while I was wearing Virgo's designs. His show is definitely a lot more subliminal. If you were to listen to it with the sound, you would, be able to catch the moments where I intended it to be very, I guess, deep, to where if you were to watch it, you would kind of get dizzy watching it, or I don't know, you would, your eyes would just be hurting from watching it a little bit too much.
Sure.
So I wanted it to be a lot more. I guess the mood that a lot of the shows that were out through the week, all like depicted a mood that we were all experiencing during this self isolation and quarantine. So I wanted
Right.
this to kind of be that lazy, angry feeling of not being able to leave your house, of not being able to do anything but listen to
Wow.
music, and for me, just being able to dress up in my house and not really kind of show anybody it, and then just kind of be like, well, what's the point of dressing up at home
Right.
if
Very cool.
nobody's going to see me in it? So this show was kind of like, oh, we want to break out, we want to get out, we want to do something, but in the end, nobody's really out there watching us anyways, because it's all Corona's happening and there's nothing to do at the moment. So
Right.
it just depicts all of that for us.
Right. Right. How soon did you decide to do this online? Is it a decision you made immediately? Like, okay, we got to do this online. Definitely, Bronzeville Fashion Week is going to be remote this year, or is it something? Is it a decision that you took your time with?
Well, to be quite honest, I spent 6 months working on the original Brownsville Fashion Week that was going to happen this
Oh
this
wow.
week with 29 fashion shows, 29 wonderful locations, and
Wow.
and then
That I didn't
and right
know.
and Corona hit the month that I was finalizing my. Sorry, I just burped a little bit. I just had a
That's
bunch of
okay.
water. I'm so sorry, but I was on the last. I was on the last application that I was going to send
Right.
to the city for Brownsville
Oh my
Fashion Week. That
God.
included all the locations that I was asking for them and everything that I was going to need from them. And that week, Corona happened, and I knew I had to talk to the team about it because I was expecting something bad to come out of this, and I knew that. I mean, I was hoping that Corona would be over by the time Brownsville Fashion Week came around this year. But
Right.
a month before today, it was just so bad, and that's when I decided to take it online. And originally we weren't going to do it. We were going to cancel it. Everybody else that was having a fashion show this month in Brownsville, didn't do anything about it. Didn't even update people about whether they were going to reschedule or
Hmm.
whether they were going to do it on an online platform. And so nobody here in the Valley was really focusing on promoting any kind of art
Right.
show, fashion show, runway show like this online at the moment here in the Valley. So I knew I had to hop on it. I knew I had to do it. And I'm glad to say that we were the first people to do this. And the way it turned out was amazing. Of course, I'm so proud of it.
I'm
And we did
very
it. We,
glad
we
that
did it
you
all like in
moved
30 days.
forward with it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very quickly put together. Very well put together. I'm glad that you moved forward with it. And I hope that you still one day get to do this show that you're talking about. We talked a lot about this Brownsville Fashion Week online, but I don't think we conversed at all about the plans that you originally had for Brownsville Fashion Week this year. Maybe something that you can put together for a future Brownsville Fashion Week. So moving on, the schedule. On Wednesday, you had a Zoom workshop on DIY spiral dye tutorial. This is tie dye 101, and it was it was held by Tex Jimenez, who also did the runway show that night. Tell me a little bit about this workshop. Why tie dye, and why did this gentleman, I guess, decide to cover this topic?
Well, tie-dye is specifically what Tex uh, focuses on and works on.
That's what I
He
thought.
is a vintage reseller and adds his own tie-dye to a bunch of old pieces from the 80s and
Oh,
90s
that's very
and
cool.
resells them. And he's really good at what he does. I haven't seen many people here in the Valley perfect their tie-dye or put in as much effort as I've seen Tex do. So I reached out to him and I was like, do you want to
Mm,
do a workshop? I know we're working together on a fashion show, but do you want to do a workshop as well too? So he did a workshop on tie dye and did a bunch of he did 3 lessons and did 3 different T-shirts on 3 different looks. But his show was totally something different from what the workshop is all about. In the show, he only has like maybe one or two pieces that have tie dye on them. So it, you
Right.
know, he did that intentionally, so it could just be like little small details here and there. But for the most part,
Before I
his show is an
play
all
his,
male show.
it was an all-male show. Before I play his
Yeah.
runway show, I want to ask about his stuff, and actually everybody's that we're looking at tonight. Are these pieces for sale? Is there somewhere that we can go to buy some of this stuff right now, or is that something that might happen in the future?
So I know some of the things that are in Texas show are for sale, and you can go to Lazarus Vintage on Instagram. Um,
Got it.
and Dorelli's, the show that was aired tonight on at 8 p.m. is also, those things are for sale. Those things are all in the shop in Westlaco at Factor Vintage. Virgos are all for sale as well too. He's on Instagram at Virgo Dix. Maximiliano, the show that was on Thursday, yesterday, those items I think
Right.
are custom design. So you would have to reach out to the designer and kind of do
Fantastic.
your own gig. So
Fantastic. Definitely something people could look into. This is Tex Jimenez Runway Show, which happened on Wednesday as part of the Brownsville Fashion Week. And Fish was just sharing with us that one of the things that he does is tie-dye manufactured pieces of clothing. But on this runway show, we're going to see something a little bit different. But again, this is the work of Tex Jimenez.
he used to like tie dye on like the socks. He does a bunch of socks and bandanas, but specifically in the show, I think it's all socks that
Got
are
it.
tie dye.
Got it. Now, we haven't mentioned any of the models' names. I know I've seen a lot of different models on some of these runway shows. Are these models that you work with directly, or are they working with other agencies or by themselves?
Most of the models are signed, and some of them are signed to me. So
Got
I
it.
just work with the same models for the most part.
And these are all models from the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, well, originated from the Rio Grande Valley, but some of them live in New York. Some of them are signed to Wilhelmina Models in New York. Some of them are signed to agencies in Chicago and Austin and all over. So
Got it. Fantastic. Now, is this something, or these design pieces that I'm seeing here, something that we could consider as being streetwear?
yeah, this whole line itself is streetwear. It's
Right.
it's very New York. So if you were to go out to New York and go to any corner, you could see a lot of street style that looks exactly like this. So it depicts that whole scene over there. I like it very much.
Streetwear.
And the theme in this one was also
yeah.
very isolation.
Streetwear and the streetwear scene and the whole sort of streetwear, I don't want to call it industry because a lot of it is a lot of micro brands that do short run manufacturing and things like that, is probably the only fashion niche that I know about. I spent a little bit of time in New York, and as a result of that, I ended up getting into like boutique streetwear brands, and I loved going to the little streetwear brand boutique shops around Brooklyn, one or two in Manhattan, completely out of my price range, but well, most of them. But really fascinating stuff in terms of streetwear micro brands coming out of cities all over the place. And I have seen, I can't even off the top of my head, but absolutely everybody, I'm sure you've seen the few streetwear micro brands on Instagram that are coming out of the Valley. There's a few out there. I have seen them, and I follow a couple of them. But moving on to Thursday, there was a workshop by Sarah Bennick, Fashion 101 workshop, Fashion Sustainability. So tell me a little bit about just even the idea of fashion sustainability. What is meant by that, and what was covered in this workshop?
So fashion sustainability is let me repeat that. Fashion sustainability is pretty much to save the earth, find clothes that have longer lasting material, that are good and not going to break on you, not going to tear on you, that are going to make you want to go and shop at fast fashion shops to keep, refilling what you need
Right.
on clothes and shoes. So it's, pretty much locally sourcing your things, shopping at thrift stores, what you can do to preserve your clothes, what you can do to upcycle them, to keep reusing them without with avoiding having to go to shops like Target, Walmart, or even the mall to go shopping. We're just trying to
Yeah.
bring down that whole fast fashion industry that I spoke about earlier. How people are getting paid, 3 cents an
Got
hour
it.
to reproduce all these things for us that are so in demand, but they're so in demand
Right.
because they're so cheap, and people are aware that what they're buying is not going to last them a very long time. So the sustainability class was to just get people to open their eyes and change things about their normal everyday life that they would usually do,
Absolutely.
and be more eco-friendly with it. So
Right. Fantastic topic. I love that. And then the runway show that night, Thursday, Maximiliano Montezuma is the designer for this runway show that we're watching now. And there was a runway show tonight, so this wasn't the last, correct?
yeah, this wasn't the last. The
Tonight was
show
the
on
last, but it's
Thursday
happening.
Yeah, it's happening at 10:30. It happened at 8 p.m., but it's also happening again at 10:30. But Thursday's
Got it.
show was honestly my favorite show. It features two trans models who I think have, some of the best looks in the whole Brownsville Fashion Week this season. Their looks are to die for, to gag
Wow.
for, and I just loved having them associated with this queer designer who really put together all these pieces by hand, and their art and their craft shows and all the details that I put into this video. So it's definitely one of my favorites. And also all the wigs were made by Maximiliano, and the makeup was also done by Maximiliano. So
That's quite a lot of work. He handmade all of the pieces. He handmade the wigs, put all the designs together. Where is Maximiliano from?
McAllen or Edinburgh, I'm not too sure.
Oh, okay. He's the Edinburgh designer. Really, I don't think I had seen this video. A lot of the runway shows I sat and watched, but this is something I just downloaded before the show since it happened last night. This looks really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
And
some
something-
of the designs are very they're all costume designs. So Maximiliano does a bunch of drag, and their drag varies from Mexican themed to
Wow.
Renaissance to burlesque.
Look at this.
So
Yeah. This is very interesting. I love this.
oh my gosh, all the designs are to die for. I need all of them. I'm surprised that I wasn't over here trying them on. We didn't have time to do that, but I wish I was over here trying all of them on.
I'm not going to pretend to be educated about these designs or have all of the design context behind these, but all I'm going to say is that one of my favorite movies is Marie Antoinette, the Sofia Coppola movie, and one of the reasons was the costume design on that film, and very elaborate costume design in that film, and this reminds me of that just because of the amount of detail in these pieces, I guess.
Yeah. Was that the
Very
recent
cool.
Marie Antoinette?
Sofia Coppola's Maria Antoinette came out in, gosh, her film Lost in Translation was what, like 2007, 2008?
Oh yeah.
I can't. You know what? Let's look this up. I want to know right now.
I think I saw a
'Cause I
video
want people to
on
watch it.
YouTube of someone talking about the costume designs in that. So I
Yeah,
think
Marie
I'm pretty
Antoinette.
up to date with it.
No, it's 2006. I'm wrong. It's a 2006 film. And I have no idea why. I mean, it's not my aesthetic. It's not something that style is that I'm into in other movies or art or anything like that. It's just, you know what it is? I love Sofia Coppola as a director. I love all her movies. I loved Lost in Translation, and there was something about this film, and everything she does is so aesthetically rich. You know, even when minimal in some of her films. And Marie Antoinette is just one of those movies. But there's actually quite a lot of fashion design in that movie. I know that they did this really cool photo shoot for Vogue, or for Vanity Fair maybe, that was a very long spread. I don't think I've ever seen a spread that big in either of those magazines. It just went on for pages, and it was absolutely beautiful because there was so much in that movie to look at. But very cool designs from Maximiliano Montezuma in the McAllen, Edinburgh area. Again, just to mention it again, if you all want to see the full-length runway shows from Brownsville Fashion Week, they are on the Facebook page, Brownsville Fashion Week Online. Just click on videos, and all the runway shows are there. Also, the one happening tonight that we're not showing because it's happening during the show. So check that out. Another runway show tonight happening. Earlier today, there was a workshop called Fashion Entrepreneurship by Ashley Vasquez. Fashion entrepreneurship. What kind of stuff was covered in this workshop?
So Ashley Vasquez owns a bunch of fashion stores in McAllen, and she also owns Iced Cube. I don't know if you've heard of Iced Cube. It's like a very popular.
I have heard of Ice Cube. I've eaten Iced Cube. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been friends with her for a very long time. I've been with her since, she opened up her first shop to the first fashion show she's had. And so I was like, girl, you got to give a talk on everything about that you've done here in the Valley. You own 6 to 7 different businesses right now, and you were selling clothes out of your car when you first started. Like, and this has all been within like a 5-6 year period. So it's been a very inspirational story for me to be a part of. So I just asked her to kind of share it for us.
Right. That's very cool. Definitely somebody very knowledgeable in entrepreneurship, fashion entrepreneurship. So that's pretty much the recap of the week. I really very intrigued by all of this. Hope to see more of it next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we have dealt a lot more with the pandemic that's going on now. To have events like this in person, not just online, because I'm not in the fashion industry, but this is all very, very interesting to me. And I'm going to follow up with a lot of these designers and follow their work.
We're actually receiving a proclamation on Tuesday for Brownsville Fashion Week from the city. So,
oh, really?
I'm very excited for that.
That's very cool. So the city they'll be presenting you with an acknowledgement of the event, and that will also be online.
Yeah, that'll also be online, and it's just kind of when I had originally started Brownsville Fashion Week, I was hoping for a proclamation that would declare the month of May to be the month of Brownsville Fashion Week. And so that's what this proclamation is going to be, to declare the last week of May for Brownsville Fashion Week for years to come. When I got my first proclamation, it was for me personally, and so I was kind of devastated because I wanted it to be for Brownsville Fashion Week. But I'm very honored and very blessed to know that Brownsville Fashion Week is getting its proclamation now. So
very cool, very, very cool. Very excited to see all of these creative people involved, and to learn more about them and see their work coming out as time goes on here in the Valley. Very cool stuff. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, coming on at the close of Brownsville Fashion Week to recap everything. Always fascinating to chat with you about all the stuff going on in the fashion world. And thanks for watching the show also in previous episodes, and also for doing all this for the Valley, bringing all these people together and putting this content together for us. Absolutely very cool. And this show, I mean, you gave out 25 free tickets for every workshop, and making the runway shows available online, making your time available for this interview. You're somebody that I've chatted, personally, one-to-one many times, and you're someone who is genuinely interested in helping people and moving the creative community forward. Very passionate about that, and I think that it shows in your work. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on the show. We'll see you next year at Brownsville Fashion Week, and maybe even more.
Period. Thank you so much for having me. And I I will be airing the show. I will be airing all the shows tonight at 10:30 on Brunswick Fashion Week Online. So tune in tonight as we close it out.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks for everybody who tuned in tonight to Hotline Live. We will see you next week on Friday when we speak to Sarah Stapleton Barrera, who is running for Congress. Very exciting show. Very excited to speak to her. Have a good week, everybody. Have a good night.